Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Bedomy and this is God of War, the 2018 edition, which was developed by Santa Monica Studios and published by Sony Interactive. It is a soft reboot and a sequel to the original God of War trilogy, and it's a bit of a polarizing sequel, if I do say so myself. The original God of War games were famous for their action-adventure roots, well, that's just roots. The game was a very cinematic action-adventure with a very compelling story, but the story never got in the way of the gameplay. And this game is very focused on the story, and the gameplay had to be kind of a lot in order to make room for the story bits. So I'm just gonna be honest. I'm not a big fan of this game. I really wish that we got the original trilogy and its spin-offs on the PC first. Because if this is your first exposure to the God of War, you will probably never pick it up again. And I'll show you what I mean by that in a couple of moments, but first things first, let's take a look at the options menu. Since this game was a PS4 exclusive for a long time, the whole franchise was just limited to the PS systems. So this is their first foray into the PC platform. So I'm going to take a detailed look at their system settings and tell you this. They really went all out in order to port this properly. So you can adjust the controller settings, the gameplay settings, to your own personal preferences of the gameplay. The heads-up display can be turned on or off and customized to your own personal preference. So as you can see, you can have a compass, enemy health bars, boss health bars, and enemy off-screen indicators so that you know when an attack is coming. You can adjust the audio to your own personal preference, so every sound has its own separate slider. You could turn off the subtitles on or off. You can turn on or off the background sounds, as well as adjust your headset to a specific audio mode. The display and graphics are actually pretty nice, all things considered. Just look at this. They have two separate categories for just the display options and the graphical presentation. And I think this is limited to the PC only, because the PS4 will automatically determine, any PlayStation will automatically scale its resolution and display window to your monitor, to your TV that is to the TV it's hooked up. I honestly don't know what I'm talking about. Well, I have a general idea, but I do not own a PS. I never had one, so I only played God of War on my friend's PlayStation and saw a bunch of videos on YouTube. So anyway, this is a very well made and diversified options menu, as you can probably see. And while we're still here, yes, this game does look like that, even better when you start playing this. These are just screenshots. And the actual gameplay world looks a lot better. Very detailed. And I would recommend that you adjust your graphical settings to the maximum that your computer can actually render. Because you're denying yourself the visual pleasure of seeing something this gorgeous. Photo mode is present, but I'm not gonna lie to you, I never used it, so I'm not too sure how it actually works. And I have no intention of finding out because I honestly hate taking screenshots for this. I'd rather take I'm not a good photographer, so that's about it. Accessibility is a nice touch as well. As you can see, you can choose several presets for specific actions, as well as turns auto sprinting, auto delay, and aim assist on or off. You can adjust the speed of and the delay of certain actions as well. There are some pre-rendered combinations or commands for specific abilities. And there's also the language option, which allows you to change the spoken language, turn on or off the subtitles, and choose between a lot of subtitle languages. I mean, English, French, Spanish, and German are something you would expect, but okay, I'm not too sure. Netherlands subtitles, Portuguese, Russian, Polish, Portuguese, United Kingdom English, Turkish, Latin America English, Spanish. My bad. Czech English, Czech. The Czech language. Anyway, what I'm saying is they add a lot of subtitles for different languages, so there is no language, so that any language barrier can be reduced to a minimum. I mean, even my own native tongue is also present in this game for the subtitles, so that's something I have to give credit what credit's due. Santa Monica really outdid itself when it came to accessibility. They wanted to create a game that's accessible to everyone. So also we have two controller settings here. One where you can just see the controls for your mouse and keyboard, or your controller if you're playing with a joystick or gamepad. The game will automatically recognize it. And I'll have to another credit where credit's due. The game doesn't force you to play with a gamepad. If you're using a mouse, it will automatically register the mouse and keyboard. So that's nice. And also, you can readjust the control settings to your own personal preference. Every action has a separate key attached to it, which is always good. I cannot stress enough how much infuriating and counterproductive it is to have multiple actions bound to a single key. That's like bounding, running, jumping, and taking cover to a space bar. It's going to lead to a lot of frustrating deaths very soon. And I'm honestly glad that this game does understand. I'm glad that Santa Monica understood that, and they ported the game in such a way that it makes things easier for those that play with a mouse and keyboard. Alright, so that's it for the settings options. Let's go into the gameplay. While I wait for the thing to load, I'm just going to warn you. I did play this game on the easiest possible difficulty in order to familiarize myself with the mechanics and, well, mostly for the sake of the review. I'm just gonna... I never finished the game completely. I restarted the whole thing on the hardest possible difficulty for this one, so I only got to the first chapter because the difficulty here is, well, it's not balanced, to put it mildly. As you can see, it's a very good-looking game. The character models are nicely animated as well as designed, and they have enough textures and polygon. Yeah, they have enough. They have a lot of a lot of textures, and I forgot the word. Polygons. They have enough polygons to actually render a human-looking character. And honestly, that's a bit disturbing because Kratos came from an era where characters could have a realistic look to them, but they still had that cartoon. They had a bit of a cartooniness to them when it came to character design and look. That kind of separated. That kind of reminded you that you were playing a game, not just I'm not even sure how to explain it, but hyper-realistic visual design it doesn't work well for me, at least. It works okay in shooters such as Halo, Arma, and whatnot, but in God of War, it kind of looks... it just doesn't look right. I mean, just look at this. This is a guy who can swing a magical axe around with a serious face, and it's so hyper-realistically... Well, it's not hyper-realistic, but the design of it kind of... It doesn't match with the game style, is what I'm trying to say, honestly. But anyway, I do like the texture quality and the details of the characters. I mean, our main character is the one we will look a lot at, so that he has to look good for the camera. And also, the side characters such as Atreus, our son, and other NPCs we'll encounter also have a lot of detail and effort put into them. And the same goes for the enemy monsters and NPCs. So since we're this is a excuse me, this is another save where I just fought off a couple of monsters already. So I'm just gonna reload the situation quickly so that we can see how the gameplay actually looks. And also to demonstrate how the audio itself is implemented. I'll give game props for its visual and audio presentation. It looks beautiful, it sounds beautiful, but the visual style is not something I'm a big fan of. Ooh! Okay, this is as good as place as any to fight our enemies off. Ooh. So what I'm gonna do here is What the hell? Okay, so as you can see, this is God of War. It's a very... This game is a... Game works with a... this game works off of third-person shooter mechanics more than anything else. Even though it's a melee-oriented action hack-and-slash game. So let's see if I can... Let's see if I can do this. As you can see... Oh! What? I dodged that! How did... You expect me to believe that this guy... Well, okay, this game is... What the... Oh, for Pete's sake. Yeah, as you can see, the gameplay is a bit... It's challenging, not gonna lie, but... it's not challenging for the best of reasons. Anyway, as I was saying, the gameplay audio is spot on. The music, the footsteps, the sound effects in general, they all sound so... They all sound so well, and damn it... What the f... Oh, okay, it's just that was just dirty. Anyway, as you can see, and here the visual presentation is spot on. The audio effects are great. The particle effects, the lighting effects, and the shadows, they mix so well. But biggest problem I have with this, but that's the only positive thing I can actually say about the game. The gameplay itself is... It's a mixed bag of third person and a melee mode that doesn't work well, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, just look at this. I managed to block something and I still get hit! And even when you... Oh boy. Okay, I'm gonna restart on a different section because this is gonna be a long montage of me getting killed. So let's see. I think this is an area where I had a better chance of winning. Well, I can probably win this, but I need to focus so much so I won't be able to talk. So I'm gonna switch to a different section where there are less enemies and I have more room to maneuver. But anyway, as you saw, the gameplay takes a lot of inspiration, damn it. It takes a lot of inspiration from third-person shooters such as Resident Evil as well as Gears of War. But it doesn't take the best elements of it. Well, it takes some good elements out of those games, but it doesn't implement them well into a God of War title. For Pete's sake! And also, the saving is a nightmare to deal with. This game really wants to tell you a story. It's not interested in the gameplay. So if you manually save the game, it will just forcefully reload the last autosave you took. Oh boy. So I created a manual save for this situation, and the game returned me back to the autosave that was under it. So I did prepare. I wanted to prepare for a fight that I would feature in this video, but yeah, with manual saves you're just stuck with a. You're just forcefully returned to the last autosave you encountered. But okay, I think that might actually be a good thing in this case. As I was saying, the game takes elements from third-person shooters, and really does not implement them well into a hack-and-slash action game. Observe. You have a shooter element in the game, but most opponents are long-ranged or very nimble characters that will cause you a lot of grievances if you're trying to get into a melee range with them. So your best bet is to usually just throw your axe at them and resummon it every 5 seconds. It's not a problem if you're fighting off tougher opponents such as that tank over there, but if you're trying to fight flying enemies, that's your only option most of the time, because flying opponents have an ability to. Because flying opponents have the ability to. Oh, right. Because flying opponents have the ability to fly away from you, and that's infuriating when you're trying to get a combo rolling. But thankfully, you do have a couple of attacks that will allow you to intercept and annihilate the set opponents. As you just saw, I managed to. You kidding me? I only got 12 experience out of this. Anyway, as you can see, we do have several attacks we can perform with our axe, such as basic light attacks that can do less damage, but they interrupt our opponents when they attack us most of the time. We have heavy attacks, which are very damaging but slow, and we also have several special attacks we can interchange depending on which rooms we put on the axe. And the set attacks just reload themselves after a couple of seconds. And there's also the minor non-combat ability you can equip on yourself. Honestly, it's a robust system, but it gets the job done. But if we're going to be honest, it's not a fun combat system, as you probably noticed. It's just use a combination of light and heavy attacks, and then when you have the chance, pop up your shield and press the heavy or light attack in order to perform a magical attack that will reload itself after a couple of seconds. It's not a bad system if you never played a game like this, but in all honesty, if you ever played a God of War game before, you'll know that this is a very, very bad God of War game. Oh, what the? Yeah. Also, you're dealing with opponents that can. You're dealing with opponents that can. That can either be annoying or can be very entertaining to fight with. Excuse me, I'm trying to stay alive for a foreseeable duration of time. So if you'll excuse me, I'm trying to... Damn it! Oh, damn it. Where's the little... where's the little bastard? There we go. Okay, let's try to keep the thing occupied. Alright. Alright. And that takes care of that. So, as you can see, the gameplay is, as I said, the gameplay is a bit on the boring side when it comes to combat. You're only limited to several basic swings with light attacks and heavy attacks, and no, that's not it. And you're limited with special moves depending on the runes you equip. So you can find additional special attacks with new runes, but depending on the number of slots of the axe, you can only equip 2 or 3 at a time. At the moment, I only have the 3 combat runes and this one. This one protective barrier that will allow me to stay alive for a bit longer. Also, you can equip your son's bow with some additional runes as well, which will give him magical attacks, which in all honesty isn't bad, but it could be better. And as the game progresses, he'll unlock more useful arrow types that will help you in combat against stronger opponents, but in an early game, things get really boring really fast. And by comparison, the original God of War games didn't limit you too much on the types of attacks you could do. You could do light attacks, heavy attacks, combine your light attacks and heavy attacks with specific directions in order to get different types of attacks. So if you press a square, triangle, that was the most typical combination, but it gave you a pretty decent poke, and then poke, throw up, and body slam your opponent into the ground type of attack. It was visually impressive, and if you managed to time your light attacks correctly, you could have created some very spectacular tornado slashes, crowd control attacks, ground pounds, air attacks, air juggles. Visually speaking, the old games were better in terms of combat. This game is slow, it's atmospherical, it's trying to tell you a story about a father and son going towards the mountain in order to spread the ashes of the boy's dead mother and Kratos' late wife. Along the way, they'll encounter monsters and trolls and dragon and a dragon and a couple of demigods and possibly gods, and they will all try to kill him eventually. But yeah, the gameplay in itself is not something I'd write home about. The boss fights are pretty boring. They're pretty repetitive, considering the fact that you're usually dealing with trolls, and on occasion you'll encounter a dragon or a demigod or 2, and then fight them off. But most of the time, most of the bosses you'll encounter will be trolls, and they have no difference. Honestly, they're just stick around their legs, avoid their attacks, and then hit them while their backs are turned. So combat can be pretty boring. It doesn't have the allure or the complexity of God of War's original boss fights, which include some puzzle elements to it.
Locked up good.
But anyway, as that's not the only part of the gameplay here. The combat is spread out enough so it's not too repetitive, and well, it's spread out enough so you don't notice that the combat is boring. While you're not fighting, you will explore the areas you're in and discover either puzzles or hidden chests that will reveal or grant you reveal you parts of the map, or give you some additional fighting power. As you can see, I'm currently trying to deal with one very easy puzzle, which is throw an axe and unlock the chest, and that's around 90% of the puzzles you will encounter in this game. Find something, throw an axe at it, and repeat the process once or twice, and repeat the process until you get a reward. And honestly, that's not a good exploration mode. I mean, there is no jumping puzzles. There's no timing puzzles or anything. It's pretty stupid. I mean, I don't know what's in the chest or in the local area. I just know that there's something in that I'll probably have to collect it or waste time in order to get a new piece of equipment. I am never told what I'm going to get for my effort. Will I waste my time for, a different type of an axe blade that will grant me a passive bonus that I'll never use, but I had to go through a very annoying challenge in order to get the said weapon part? Or will I just encounter a better weapon part by simply running around the area? It's very annoying. I'm not gonna lie. It makes me lose my interest. I lost my interest in playing this game somewhere around the first and second chapter. I mean, just look at this. I sold not a difficult puzzle, but still, it was a puzzle. So I was expecting I'd get this reward in the chest that I liberated from the puzzle. But no, I got some gold and some crafting materials. And the actual rewarding item was in a chest, in an unguarded chest. So as you can see, I'm gonna equip this new rune to my weapon, and this will grant me the new type of attack. And unfortunately, every rune you find along the way is different, and they're all reserved for a specific weapon and a specific character. So the rune I just discovered cannot be equipped on Atreus' bow and arrow or a quiver. I have to find the runes that will empower the boy on their own. Well, that will empower the boy's ability to fight. That grants me a chance to teach him or use his abilities to my advantage a bit earlier. So anyway, I'm gonna go and pick up the item I collected, or throw it into the water, which is a bit more gold, honestly, which isn't so bad, but...
Mother was a warrior. Was she in a war too?
Of a sort. Her family was decimated by hostile rivals, and she alone survived. She walked the warrior's path, but her war was to live on, to brave an unforgiving world alone.
And that's why she asked Sindri and Brock to make her the axe?
She had the strength to wield such a weapon, and the wisdom to use it for good. She found purpose in protecting the weak.
So, she'd help out the elves?
No.
Yes, so that's the whole gameplay loop. Boring combat, exploration, which is unrewarding most of the time, and there are also story bits where you just move along and let Atreus and Kratos discuss things for a couple of seconds, then you wait for a cutscene. That's about it. It's this game is trying to be a movie with combat intermissions most of the time. It's honestly not something I'd say that's worthy of a Academy Award, but what do I know? I'm just a dumb idiot on the internet with a computer. But while we're still here, as you can see, the exploration is fairly minimalistic. It's always there's no complexity to exploration. It's just run around, get to a ledge or something, and press the button that's gonna resolve the whole thing automatically.
That's gotta be the entrance.
As you can see, I'm just it's just a button prompt that tells me to park the.
boy.
That just told me to park the boat, and we continue on. Also, whenever we get close to something, we are going to.
The crystal with that stuff. Why?
To prevent reinforcements. Be ready.
As you can see, I triggered a situation simply by getting close to the story bit. And now we're here at a very boring part of the mission. Finding off the Dark Elves, which are annoying, one of the most annoying creatures in the universe. And that's not me saying that because they're capable of flight and avoiding most of my attack. What?
You need to find a healing stone.
Alright, I'm gonna go into rage mode. Screw this. I'm just gonna abuse the ability given to me by my anger. Let's see, can I? Nope. Obviously, I'm not allowed to use my abilities to the best of their, to the fullest extent. Okay. Okay, this is going better. What the hell? And I'm gonna shield up. I'm gonna get punished. Lovely. Ah, well, what can you do? It's a bad combat situation. It's a bad combat situation to be in. My health was low. My reflexes were not honed, and I was not even paying attention to the situation. But as I hope you can see, the gameplay really doesn't do the game any favors. It's trying to be a third-person shooter when it's even though it's melee oriented. Even though it's a melee oriented gameplay. And screw you, you game. So yeah, as you can see, as you saw already, the game works wonderfully when you're fighting off smaller groups of enemies. When they're manageable, and when they do not run around so much, and they have an ability to dodge or block every attack you do. And blocking isn't omnidirectional. You have to hope for the best and hope that the game will not punish you for trying to pick a fight with. You're not allowed, so yeah, the game won't let you have fun with it. I hate this game. I hate the combat in this game. It's boring, it's annoying, and I really, really hate it. Anyway, as I was saying, the combat in the game is, as you saw, it works well if it's a smaller group of enemies, but the problems begins when you're fighting off ranged opponents, especially the ones that are capable of flight. Then your only option becomes use ranged abilities and don't let your opponent get close to you. And whoever you believe in help you if you're even trying to use your melee abilities when there's a bunch of enemies trying to attack you, or if you're trying to block. You're just gonna get punished even more by that. Yeah, screw this, I'm just gonna... Come on! At least let me auto-lock on opponents! Bollocks! So yeah, as you can see, the combat in the game is a bit of an insult to your skill and intelligence, because no matter how well you perform or how badly you perform, you will always get the same amount of experience. As you saw in my fight against the tank, I didn't took any damage, I used the boy to his fullest ability, and I only got rewarded with 12 experience. But this game, even when I get killed, rewards me with a small amount of experience for, what, dying and being useless. I mean, the boy does more damage than I do. And the annoying part of this game is the fact that you're... What the? Seriously? I haven't even recovered from that stare animation! What the hell was that? I hate this game. I honestly detest this game. Alright, I'm gonna return to a lot older save, which is probably somewhere closer to the beginning. But it's honestly more balanced than this. It's at least I have melee opponents to fight there. And this game, it's so... this section is one of the most annoying ones, because you're dealing with a lot of flying enemies that are hard to deal with, and they are... despite the fact that they look like wimps. Anyway, let's avoid the annoying situations. And show you a bit more of a... Yeah, this is earlier.
Wait for my mark.
This is a very early section in the game, but it's a good place to show you the gameplay a bit better. As you can see, the gameplay really favors... it favors the third-person over-the-shoulder shooter action more than actual third-person melee combat, which has been the God of War's bread and butter. And honestly, the game, I kind of like this section more than anything else. It's simple. You have enough opponents to deal with. You're given enough opponents to challenge yourself while fighting, and you're still learning how to use your abilities to their fullest potential, at least the basic ones.
I think you got him.
So as you can see, there is a stun mechanic in the game. You just have to fill up a stun meter in order to prevent your opponent from moving, and then you can kill him with a strong melee finish. Yeah, I should turn off the threat indicators, but yeah.
Look alive, boy.
As you can see, this game is a bit more... it's a bit more balanced when you're just dealing with opponents that are melee oriented. And if you time your attacks correctly, you can actually melee them, and you can parry and melee them into submission for a couple of seconds. And if you time everything correctly, you can actually disable your opponents from attacking you for a brief period of time, and even juggle them up in the air and use your heavy attacks to their fullest potential. As you can see, I'm using my abilities correctly here. And yeah.
How does he do that?
Oh god. So yeah, if you get too greedy, oh! Yep, good idea. Oh boy. Getting out of here. Shoot fire, boy. Damn it! So yeah, as you saw, I really didn't dominate that fight, but I still got a hefty sum of experience for it. At least for the early gameplay. So as you can see, the gameplay is divided into exploration, combat, and story bits, where we just discuss things with the kid.
For my mark.
And actually, while we're still discussing this, as you can see, you can command Atreus to fire his arrows on command, or he can do this on his own. When you're commanding him to fire, he's gonna be limited to 3 arrows, but that number can increase. When you're fighting it,
Do not question me.
when you're actually fighting together, he's gonna have an unlimited number of arrows. The beautiful thing about the game is, since the kid is here on his own, you can actually use him as a diversion of some sort. So you can actually kill your opponents with relative ease. And if you time your attacks correctly, you're gonna have a easier time fighting. Alright, that takes care of most of them. So let's see, can I take out these guys quick enough? Yes, I can. Yeah, I don't care about the front indicators. Piss off. So yeah, as you can see, as you fight along, you will discover collectibles, other side quests, and characters that will give you additional bonuses and extra experience if you complete the said missions. And your opponents can empower themselves if they're enraged enough or take enough damage. So your best bet in most cases is to be quick about your attacks and consider your positioning carefully. As you can see, I'm currently jungling this one guy up in the air, while the empowered one is trying to get closer in order to attack me. So depending on your attacks, you can actually depending on your movement and attacks, you can either emerge victorious, or you can end up in a really sticky situation. Okay, I'm killing this guy.
Keep the pressure on.
Okay, I'm just gonna keep the opponents busy and keep out of range of this guy. So yeah, I do like this part of the game actually, where it's just you and a small number of enemies you can deal with. When the game tries to hit you with multiple opponents from multiple angles, you're going to have a bad time. As you can see, the boy is your best bet to stay alive for a longer period of time, because he can be a distraction with his arrows, and depending on how often the kid hits, he can actually stun your opponents for you, which makes things easier when you're trying to stun him and finish him off with a stun attack. So let's see if I can play this correctly. One quick throw, and there we go. That's the whole situation resolved.
Can I help?
If you want to help, distract them. Whoever is not my focus should be yours, but only when safe to do so.
I can do that.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie, the dynamic between Kratos and Atreus is a bit bland on, if I'm gonna be honest. It's understandable considering that Kratos is trying to restrain himself from getting angry and whatnot, but story-wise, it's kind of stupid, if you ask me. He's very distant to the child. He's not even trying to be a parent to him. He is just, I mean, that's his Spartan. I mean, he was raised as a Spartan, so
Roy, over here.
He's raising him as he was raised, but still.
There's
The
a
thing with
universe ahead.
Yetnar,
Giants.
you can read the writing.
Some. Just the language his mother knew. But they're all sort of connected, so sometimes I can feel my way through stuff I shouldn't know. You know?
Yeah. So the thing is, he is not very close to his son. At the very least, at first, as the story progresses, he does start to bond with him a bit more. But as the game goes, he's still this. He's just this emotionless and bland person. If you ask me, it's understandable that he wants to stay out of everyone's way because he doesn't want any additional trouble they already have. But gameplay, story-wise, it's a boring story. When you think about it, certain portions of the game and certain set pieces are entertaining to watch, but when you're playing the game, you're mostly just waiting for button prompts and following a scripted situation. And granted, the original God of War games also had this very linear progression when it came to levels, but the cutscenes were the story were a reward for you for finishing a level more than anything else. And the gameplay was the reward in itself, because the better you performed in the combat situations, the more experience you would gather. And in this game, you're just limited to, well, you're not gonna get it rewarded for good performance. I mean, this combat scenario I was in, I didn't take any damage at all, and you would think I'd get a little bonus for my performance, but no. Even if I survived within an inch of with 100% of health, I'd probably get 75 experience points as well. So yeah, gameplay-wise, I'm not impressed. This game really wants to be a movie. It doesn't want to be a game. It wants to be a movie for everyone. And that kind of holds the game back a lot. And as I said at the beginning, I'd rather see the original trilogy of games ported to the PC rather than play this. Because if you'd ever played a God of War game and this was your first experience with it, you'd probably say it's a good movie, or you'd probably say it's a good movie more than anything else. You wouldn't remember the gameplay. Only thing you would remember is the frustration you had while playing it. And I'll have to give the game credit where credit's due. There are some nice variations to some certain enemies. Some of them really do require a different amount of strategy to deal with. For example, these blue guys, they're immune to ice magic, so you're only limited to your fists.
Space your shots. Speed costs accuracy.
Got
it. Yes, as you can see, you will have some tidbits of dialogue between Kratos and Atreus where he tries to give him advice on how to fight and everything, and tells him a bit about his past as well. Those situations are nice usually, but there's no actual bonding between them, and a meaningful one in my book. Anyway, as I was saying, there's a decent amount of variation when it comes to enemies. Most of them are divided into flying bastards and humanoid pricks. The flying bastards are ranged opponents. They can dodge and teleport away from you when you get close in range, and that makes them very annoying, especially in the early game when you're only limited to your throwing your axe and your arrows, because it takes forever to deal with them. And the melee-oriented opponents they have some variations to them. Some are immune to ice.
Hey,
I
think there's a chest over there.
To ice attacks, while others are more resilient to your fists. So you have to vary between your fists and your axes. And later down the line, you will. Oh boy. Yes, I will put this rune. Yes. Can I go now? Thank you. And later down the line, you will be able to. You'll unlock your older weapons from Greece, which are the Blades of Chaos and Kratos' signature weapon, which will give you mid-range crowd control type of attacks. And those are pretty fun, not gonna lie, but it comes into the game too late. Too late for me to actually care about it. Honestly, when that point in the game came, I wasn't that interested in playing the game for too long if I could avoid it. But yeah, that's the action. That's the combat portion of the game. Since I already mentioned experience and everything, it might be a good thing to actually show you what the game is also about. It's an RPG of sorts. As you progress through the game, you will unlock additional skills and abilities for your axe, for your hand-to-hand combat, as well as your son's archery abilities, which can all be unlocked with a specific amount of XP. I'm not gonna upgrade anything just yet because I'm already. Well, this is still a prologue chapter, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm trying to avoid additional autosaves that will just confuse the game. But yeah, as you can see, you have weapons, you have inventory for armor and weapons, skill trees, a map of the world, a journal with your goals, side quests, and other minor missions, codex entries, where Atreus writes down the lore he discovered and his thoughts about certain opponents. It's story-wise, yeah, it makes sense, but gameplay-wise, it's a pretty shallow and boring experience because would you honestly want to play this game when you know there's a whole trilogy of games with a better combat and an interesting story that revolves around the pawn of Greek gods and his struggle to actually end them when they abused it too much? I honestly know which game I'd probably go for, but honestly, that's just me. So yeah, this was God of War. It's a pretty looking game and it sounds good, but story and gameplay wise, it's a very shallow one. And honestly, I wouldn't recommend it to anyone who is interested in playing this game on the PC. I'd say go for it. I would recommend that you purchase it on sale or go for the cheapest possible method. But I won't stop you from playing it. That's what I'm trying to say. It's a nice looking game, and if you want to push your PC to the limit, it's a very taxing one. So you could go you could get better. That's all I'm saying. So yeah, that's about it for me. I hope this was helpful to anyone who is interested in purchasing the God of War or is considering the idea. I said my 2 cents about it. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. My name has been Bedomy, and I'll see you next time. Good night.